smelled like old leather and diesel fuel, a combination that had stopped bothering Iris Calloway somewhere around the third hour of her journey. Now, 6 hours in, with the Greyhound groaning through mountain roads she didn't recognize, exhaustion had settled into her bones like sediment. She pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching pine trees blur past in the gathering dusk. Her breath fogged the glass in rhythmic clouds. Outside, the first snow of the season had begun to fall. Not the gentle, picturesque kind from Christmas movies, but angry flakes that came, sideways, battering the bus windows with a sound like static. "You can't run from this forever." Her mother's last words still echoed in her skull, spoken 3 days ago in the sterile hallway of Mercy General Hospital. Iris had left anyway, shoving clothes into a duffel bag with shaking hands, booking the first ticket north she could afford. The envelope of cash her grandmother had left her, for emergencies only. Baby girl now sat nearly empty in her jacket pocket. Some emergencies couldn't wait. The bus hit a pothole, jerking her sideways. The man who'd boarded at the last, stopped 2 hours ago in some town called Silver Ridge, shifted in the seat beside her. She'd barely glanced at him when he sat down, too focused on the way her hands wouldn't stop trembling, the way her chest felt too tight to breathe properly. Now, in the dimming light, she found herself acutely aware of him. He was tall, she'd noticed that much when he'd folded himself into the seat, his knees hitting the seat back in front of him. Dark hair, longer on top, shorter on the sides. A wool coat that looked expensive, out of place on a Greyhound heading nowhere. He hadn't spoken, hadn't looked at her, but something about his presence felt heavy, like the air pressure had changed when he sat down. Iris pulled her threadbare cardigan tighter. The bus's heating system wheezed pathetically, losing its battle against the mountain cold seeping through the windows. She was being ridiculous. The man was just a passenger. She was just tired, scared, running on coffee and adrenaline, and the jagged remains of the life she'd left behind in Portland. But Mom never explained why. Why the dreams started. Why I keep waking up with dirt under my fingernails and no memory of how it got there. The bus shuddered violently. Outside, the snow had thickened into a near whiteout. Iris couldn't see more than a few feet beyond the windows, now just swirling white, and the occasional dark mass of trees pressing close to the narrow road. "Driver's going to have to stop soon," the man beside her said. His voice startled her. Deep, quiet, with something rough around the edges. Not threatening, exactly, but something. She turned, meeting his eyes for the first time. They were amber. Not brown, actually amber, like honey backlit by sunlight. For a moment, she forgot how to speak. "The storm," he clarified, nodding toward the windshield. "Road's getting too dangerous." "Oh." Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. "Right." He studied her for a beat too long, and Iris felt heat crawl up her neck despite the cold. There was something in his gaze, a weight, an intensity that made her want to look away and lean closer all at once. Then he turned back to the window, and the moment broke. Iris exhaled shakily. Get it together. She was running from her life, not toward some romance novel meet-cute with a stranger on a bus. Even if he did smell unexpectedly, good something like cedar and winter air and smoke from a wood fire, the bus lurched again, harder this time. The driver swore loud enough for everyone to hear. "Folks, I'm gonna need to pull over." His voice crackled through the speakers. "Can't see a damn thing. There's a rest stop about half a mile ahead if we can make it." "If we can make it. Great." Iris gripped the armrest as the bus crawled forward through the storm. The world outside had gone completely white. She could hear the wind howling now, a wild sound that made something primal in her chest twist with unease. "First time in S. The mountains?" the man asked. She glanced at him. He wasn't looking at her, but she could feel his attention anyway, like heat radiating from a fire. "Is it that obvious?" You tensed when the driver mentioned the rest stop. Most people who know these roads would be relieved. Iris bit her lip. I don't know anything about where I'm going, honestly. I just needed to leave." Why was she telling him this? She didn't talk to strangers, especially not strange men on buses, no matter how warm their eyes were or how steady their presence felt. He turned to look at her again, and this time she saw something flicker in his expression. Concern? Recognition? It was gone too fast to name. "Running from something," he said. "Not a question. Isn't everyone?" She tried to make it sound light, dismissive. "Not like you are." The words settled between them, heavy and true. Iris's heart kicked against her ribs. How could he possibly? The bus suddenly fishtailed. Iris gasped, thrown sideways as the driver fought for control. Her shoulder slammed into something solid, the man's chest. His arm came up instantly, bracing her against the seat, holding her steady as the bus skidded, sickeningly across the icy road. For 3 endless seconds, they were suspended between control and catastrophe. Then the tires found purchase. The bus jerked to a stop, engine idling roughly in the whiteout silence. Iris realized she was gripping the man's coat, her face pressed against the curve of his shoulder. He smelled even better up close, that cedar smoke scent, but underneath it something else, something wild and indefinable that made her pulse quicken for reasons that had nothing to do with the near accident. "Sorry," she breathed, starting to pull back. His hand tightened, fractionally on her arm. "Stay still." Just for a second, she froze. Not because he'd commanded it, but because something in his voice, rough, almost pained, made her want to listen. Outside, she could hear the driver radioing for help, other passengers murmuring nervously. But in their shared space, the world had narrowed to the steady rise and fall of his breathing, the warmth of his body against hers, the way his fingers pressed against her sleeve like he was memorizing the shape of her. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "What's your name?" "Iris," she said. Iris Calloway. She felt, rather than saw him tense. When she tilted her head back to look at him, his expression had gone carefully blank. "Calloway," he repeated. Something in the way he said it made her stomach drop. "Do you know that name?" she asked. Before he could answer, the bus doors hissed open, and the storm rushed in. The rest stop was barely more than a concrete bunker with flickering fluorescent lights and a vending machine that hummed ominously in the corner. Iris stumbled through the door behind a cluster of other passengers, her boots sliding on the slush they'd tracked. Inside, the wind screamed behind them until the driver wrestled the door shut, muffling the storm to a dull roar against the walls. She counted 9 people total, including herself and the driver. A family with 2 young children, an elderly couple, a woman in hospital scrubs who'd been sleeping since Portland, and him. The stranger, she still didn't know his name, had positioned himself near the far wall, arms crossed, watching the room with an alertness that seemed excessive for a stranded bus full of cold, irritable travelers. Iris found a spot on one of the plastic benches bolted to the floor and wrapped her arms around herself. Her cardigan was useless. She was shivering so hard her teeth chattered. "Temperature's dropping fast," the driver announced, shaking snow from his jacket. "I radioed dispatch. They're saying the road won't be clear until morning at the earliest. Might be longer." The mother of the 2 children made a small, distressed sound. Her husband pulled her close, whispering something Iris couldn't hear. Morning. Iris closed her eyes. She had maybe $40 left. No winter coat. And apparently, she was stuck in a concrete box in the middle of nowhere, with a man who'd reacted to her last name like she'd slapped him. What did Mom never tell me? The thought circled back, relentless. Her mother's pale face in that hospital bed, the way she'd grabbed Iris's wrist with surprising strength for someone so sick. "You can't run from this forever. They'll find you. When they do, don't trust anyone who says they're there to help." "Here." Iris's eyes snapped open. The stranger stood in front of her, holding out his wool coat. "I can't. You're freezing." He said it like a fact, not an observation. "I'm fine." He was wearing a dark Henley. Underneath, the sleeves pushed up to reveal forearms corded with muscle. No visible goosebumps despite the cold seeping through the walls. Meanwhile, Iris could barely feel her fingers. She took the coat. It was still warm from his body, heavy and soft in her hands. When she pulled it around her shoulders, that cedar smoke scent enveloped her completely, and something in her chest loosened despite everything. "Thank you," she managed. He nodded once and turned away, but didn't go far. Just leaned against the wall a few feet from her bench, his gaze moving constantly between the door, the windows, the other passengers, like he was expecting something. Iris pulled the coat tighter. "You never told me your name." His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. "Dane," he said finally. Dane Ashford. The name meant nothing to her, but she filed it away anyway. Dane. It suited him somehow, sharp, solid, a little bit dangerous. "You recognized my name," she said quietly. "On the bus. Calloway. Why?" Dane's amber eyes cut to her, and she saw something flicker there. Conflict. Calculation. Then his expression smoothed into careful neutrality. "It's not uncommon," he said. "You tensed like you'd been struck. You're imagining things. I'm really not." The lights flickered. One of the children whimpered, and the mother started singing softly, some lullaby Iris half recognized. The sound should have been comforting. Instead, it made the concrete box feel smaller, the storm outside more oppressive. Dane's attention snapped to the window. Iris followed his gaze but saw only darkness and snow pressing against the glass. "What is it?" she asked. "Nothing." But his voice had changed. Gone flat, tense. Iris stood, the coat falling to the bench behind. "You keep saying that, but you're lying. You've been on edge since you sat down next to me. And now, you should stay inside, away from the windows." "Why?" He looked at her then. Really looked at her. And the intensity in his gaze stole her breath. "Because I asked you to." It should have. Made her angry, that non-answer. Instead, something in her wanted to obey. Wanted to trust this stranger who smelled like winter forests, and whose eyes held secrets she couldn't name. Don't trust anyone who says they're there to help. Iris grabbed the coat and walked deliberately to the window. Dane had been watching. Outside, the storm raged on. Snow piled against the glass in drifts. She could see the bus, a dark hulk already half buried, and beyond it, just at the edge of the light from the rest stop. Movement. Iris pressed closer to the glass, her breath fogging it. There, a shape, low, to the ground, circling. Too large to be a dog. The wrong proportions for a wolf, though that's what her brain wanted to call it. Iris. Dane's voice came from directly behind her, making her jump. "Step back. There's something out there." "I know." Her heart hammered. "What is it?" His hand closed around her upper arm, gentle but firm, pulling her away from the window. "A mistake. That's not an answer." The lights went out. Darkness slammed down like a physical thing. The children screamed. Someone else shouted. Iris stumbled backward and hit a solid wall of chest. Dane, still, holding her arm, steadying her. "Everyone stay calm," the driver called out. Probably just the storm knocking out power. "I've got a flashlight." A sound cut him off. A howl, rising above the wind. Long, mournful, and far too close to the building. Iris's blood turned to ice. That was not a coyote. Not a wolf. Nothing natural made a sound like that, something between an animal's cry and something almost human. "What the hell?" the father started. "Stay away from the doors," Dane said, his voice cutting through the panic with an authority that made everyone freeze. "And the died. Windows. Move to the center of the room." "Who the fuck are you to—" the driver began. Another howl, closer. Answered by a second one, from the opposite side of the building. They were surrounded. In the darkness, Iris felt Dane shift, putting himself between her and the door. His body radiated, heat and tension. "Dane," she whispered. "What's happening?" Something that shouldn't be. His hand found hers in the dark, squeezed once. "Stay close to me. Whatever happens, don't run. Running triggers the chase." "The chase? What are you—" Glass shattered. One of the windows exploded inward, and the storm rushed in along with something else, a dark shape, massive and moving with terrible purpose. The elderly woman screamed, and Dane pushed Iris behind him, his body changing in ways that should have been impossible, even as her mind refused to process what she was seeing. "Don't look," he growled, his voice dropping into something inhuman. "Iris, don't look at me." But she already was. And nothing would ever be the same. Iris couldn't look away. In the fractured darkness, illuminated only by the emergency exit sign's red glow and the snow-reflected moonlight, Dane's silhouette rippled. His shoulders broadened, spine curving as bones shifted beneath skin with sounds that shouldn't exist, wet cracks and deep pops that made her stomach lurch. But he hadn't fully changed. He stood frozen between forms, trembling with the effort of holding himself back. "Get them out," he rasped to the driver, his voice scraped raw. "Back exit." Now, the creature that had crashed through the window snarled, a sound like gravel grinding against metal. Iris caught a glimpse of it in the dim light, too large, too wrong, all sinew and fur and eyes that reflected red in the darkness. The driver didn't argue. He grabbed his flashlight with shaking hands and herded the other passengers toward the rear of the building. The mother clutched her children close. The elderly couple moved as fast as they could. The nurse helped them along. None of them looked back at Dane, but Iris couldn't move. Her feet had rooted to the concrete floor, her entire body locked in place as her mind tried to reconcile what she was seeing with everything she thought she knew about reality. The creature lunged. Dane met it mid-leap, and the impact sent them both crashing into the vending machine. Glass shattered. Metal shrieked. Iris stumbled backward as they rolled across the floor in a tangle of limbs and fur and violence. She should run. Every instinct screamed at her to follow the others, to escape while Dane held the thing's attention. Instead, she pressed herself against the wall and watched him fight. He moved like liquid darkness, still mostly human but faster than any person should be, stronger than physics allowed. When the creature's claws raked across his ribs, black fabric tearing, he didn't cry out, just drove his fist into its throat and threw it back through the broken window into the storm. Silence fell, broken only by Dane's ragged breathing. He stood in the wreckage, chest heaving, blood seeping through his torn shirt. Slowly, so slowly, he turned to face her. His eyes glowed amber in the darkness. Not reflected light, actual luminescence, like embers burning in his skull. "You should have run," he said hoarsely. Iris's voice came out steadier than she expected. "What are you, right now? Trying very hard not to be what I'm supposed to be." He took a step toward her, then stopped himself. "Are you hurt?" "No," she swallowed hard. "You? I'll heal." The casual way he said it sent a fresh wave of unreality washing over her. Heal. Like the 4 parallel gashes across his ribs were nothing more than paper cuts. Outside, another howl rose. Dane's head snapped toward the sound, every muscle in his body going taut. "There are more," Iris whispered. "Always more." His jaw clenched. "We need to move. They'll regroup, come back stronger. The others are headed for the bus. It won't save them, but it'll buy time." He finally closed the distance between them, stopping just short of touching her. This close, she could see the setter, inhuman glow fading from his eyes, leaving them merely amber, merely impossible. "I need you to trust me." "Trust you?" A hysterical laugh bubbled up her throat. I know what I am." Something raw crossed his face. "But I'm not what's hunting you." The words hit her like ice. Water. "Hunting me? You think it's coincidence I sat next to you on that bus? That this storm hit exactly when it did? Stranding us here?" Dane's hand lifted, hovering near her cheek but not quite touching. "They've been tracking your scent for 3 days, Iris. Ever since you left Portland." Her knees went weak. She gripped the wall behind her for support. "That's impossible. I'm nobody. I'm just a Calloway." The way he said it made the name sound like a curse and a prayer combined. "The last Calloway bloodline. Do you have any idea what that means?" "No. My mother never..." She stopped, her mother's words echoing back. "They'll find you." "Oh God." "Come on." Dane shrugged out of what remained of his torn shirt, revealing a torso marked with scars that hadn't been there before. Or had they? Already the gashes across his ribs were closing, skin knitting together in real time. "We can't stay here." He grabbed his coat from where it had fallen, started to hand it to her, then paused, brought it to his face and inhaled deeply, his eyes sliding shut. "What are you doing?" Iris asked. "Your scent is all over this now." His voice had gone rough again. "They'll follow it. Follow you." His eyes opened, pinning her in place. "I need you to wear my shirt instead." "Your what?" "My scent will mask yours. Confuse them. It's not perfect, but it might buy us enough time to reach the truck stop 10 miles north." He was already pulling the Henley over his head, revealing more of those impossible scars, muscle that looked carved from stone. Iris's face burned despite the cold. "I'm not just... This isn't about modesty. It's about survival." He held out the shirt. "Please." The please broke something in her resistance. With numb fingers, she took off her cardigan and pulled his shirt over her own thin tank top. It was enormous on her, still warm, saturated with that cedar smoke scent that now made her head spin with questions she didn't know how to ask. Dane's pupils dilated as he watched her, nostrils flaring slightly. Then he turned away sharply, jaw tight. "We need to go. Now. Wait." She grabbed his wrist, and the contact sent electricity racing up her arm. "Tell me what I am, what the Calloway bloodline means." He looked down at her hand on his skin, and something like pain flickered across his face. "You're the reason the pack laws were written. The reason alpha bloodlines can be challenged. The reason everything I've built in the last 10 years is about to burn to the ground." "I don't understand." A howl, so close the windows rattled. "No time." Dane pulled her toward the back exit, his hand engulfing hers. "Stay with me. Step where I step. And whatever you do, don't let go." They burst into the storm together, and the cold hit her like a fist. Snow blinded her instantly. She would have fallen if Dane hadn't been there, pulling her forward through drifts that reached her knees. Behind them, something crashed through the rest stop's front entrance. Multiple somethings, their snarls rising above the wind. "Run," Dane commanded, and Iris ran, her hand locked in his, trusting a monster to save her from others. The forest swallowed them whole, and the hunt began. The forest was a maze of white and black trees, emerging from the darkness like skeletal hands reaching for the sky. Iris's lungs burned with each frozen breath, her legs screaming as Dane pulled her through snow that seemed determined to drag her down. She'd lost feeling in her feet 5 minutes ago. Or maybe it had been 15. Time had become meaningless, measured only in the rhythm of their footfalls and the distant howls that never seemed to fade. "How much farther?" she gasped. "Don't talk. Save your breath." They crested a ridge, and Dane suddenly yanked her sideways, pressing them both against the trunk of a massive pine. His body covered hers completely, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other braced against the bark above her. "Don't move," he breathed against her ear. "Don't even breathe loud." Iris's heart hammered against her ribs. Through the spaces between the trees, she saw them 3 wolves, each the size of a small bear, moving through the forest with terrible grace. Their fur was midnight black, nearly invisible against the storm, but their eyes caught the moonlight like coins at the bottom of a well. They were hunting, noses to the ground, weaving between trees, searching. One of them stopped, lifted its massive head, sniffed the air. Dane's arm tightened around her. She could feel his heartbeat against her back, faster than it should be, but steady, controlled. His breath ghosted across her neck, and despite the terror flooding her veins, her body responded to his nearness, with a warmth that had nothing to do with survival. The wolf turned in their direction. Iris held her breath until spots danced in her vision. The creature took 1 step toward them, then another. Its lips pulled back from teeth that gleamed white in the darkness. Then it stopped, shook its head, violently, as if clearing away confusion, and turned back to its pack. Within moments, they disappeared into the storm, heading east. Dane didn't move for a full minute. When he finally stepped back, Iris nearly collapsed. Her legs had turned to water. "They should have found us," she whispered. "They were right there. The shirt." His voice was rough. "My scent confused them. Made them think you were." He trailed off, jaw tight. "Think I was what?" "Pack." The word seemed to cost him something. "They thought you were under my protection. Part of my bloodline. And that matters? More than you know." He scanned the forest, then grabbed her hand again. "Come on. We can't stay exposed." They moved deeper into the trees, Dane choosing their path with an assurance that suggested he could see perfectly in the near-total darkness. Iris stumbled along behind him, trying not to think about the cold, the fear, the impossibility of everything happening. "Those wolves," she managed after a few minutes. "They're like you." "No," the word came out sharp. "They're nothing like me, but they can shift. They're rogues. Packless. They've given themselves over completely to the ray. Wolf, let it consume everything human." His hand tightened on hers. "There's a difference between using the gift and becoming the curse. Gift, curse." The words tumbled through her exhausted mind. "And you? I walk the line." He glanced back at her, and in the darkness his eyes held that faint, amber glow again. "Have for 10 years. Some days are harder than others." They emerged into a small clearing where a stream cut through the snow, the water still running despite the cold. Dane crouched beside it, cupping water in his hands and drinking deeply. After a moment's hesitation, Iris did the same. The cold water shocked her system, but it helped clear some of the fog from her thoughts. "Why are they after me?" she asked. "You said I'm the last Calloway bloodline. What does that mean?" Dane sat back on his heels, water dripping from his fingers. For a long moment he just looked at her, conflict warring across his features. "Your family," he said finally, "hasn't been fully human for 6 generations." The words hung in the frozen air between them. "That's insane," Iris whispered. "I'm human. I can't. You're dormant." He stood, began pacing the clearing like the wolf he was trying not to become. The Calloway line carries latent shifter genetics. Usually it skips generations, stays buried. But sometimes, under the right circumstances, it activates. Her mother's face flashed through her mind. The hospital bed. The way she'd looked at Iris with something like grief. The dreams. The dirt under my nails. "Mom knew. Your mother was trying to protect you. Keep you away from anyone who might trigger the change. Dane stopped pacing, turned to face her fully. But you're 24 now, the same age your grandmother was when she shifted the first time. When she met your grandfather. My grandfather died before I was born. Your grandfather was the alpha of the Northern Pack, one of the most powerful shifters in North America. Dane's voice had gone quiet, almost gentle. He was also my uncle. The revelation hit her like a physical blow. What? Your grandmother was his fated mate. She died giving birth to your mother the shift during pregnancy. It's dangerous for dormant bloodlines. Your grandfather went mad with grief, challenged the wrong rival, got himself killed. Dane's hands curled into fists. Your mother grew up human, raised by her human father, never knowing what she was, never knowing she carried the gene, but she told me to run. She knew something. She probably started having the dreams too. The instincts. He took a step toward her. It's happening to you, Iris. Faster than normal. And every shifter within 100 miles can sense it. Iris wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly colder than the storm could account for. The rogues want to kill me. No. Dane's voice went hard. They want to claim you. Force your first shift under their control. A dormant Calloway bloodline, properly awakened, could give them legitimacy. Power. Everything they've lost by abandoning their humanity. And you? She met his glowing eyes. What do you want? The question seemed to strike something deep in him. He moved closer, close enough that she could see the tension in every line of his body, the war being fought behind those amber eyes. I want, he said carefully, to get you somewhere safe. Somewhere you can choose for yourself what happens next. Choose what? Whether to embrace what you are, or suppress it forever. His hand lifted, almost touching her face before he caught himself and pulled back. Whether to come home to a pack you never knew existed, or walk away and live as human as possible. And if I choose to walk away, something like pain flashed across his face. Then I'll make sure you can. A howl rose in the distance, closer than before. Both, their heads snapped toward the sound. They're circling back, Dane said. Found the trail again. He grabbed her hand, and they ran once more into the darkness, leaving Iris's questions unanswered and her world forever changed. The cabin appeared like a mirage through the trees, a dark structure, barely visible against the storm, half buried in snow and shadow. Iris had stopped feeling her extremities 20 minutes ago, was running on pure adrenaline and Dane's relentless grip on her hand. Here, he said, pulling her up 3 snow-covered steps to a door that looked like it hadn't been opened in years. Is this yours? Safe house. The pack maintains them throughout the territory. He tried the handle, found it locked, and simply drove his shoulder into the wood. The door gave way with a crack that made Iris wince. Inside was pitch black and smelled of dust and old pine. Dane pulled her in and shut the broken door behind them, wedging it closed with a chair. For a moment they stood in the darkness, both breathing hard, listening for pursuit. Nothing but wind and the creak of old wood. Stay here, Dane murmured. She heard him move through the cabin with confidence, then the scratch of a match. Light flared, illuminating his face for a moment before he touched it to an oil lamp on a rough-hewn table. Warm light spread through a single room. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, a narrow bed another, a small kitchen area the third. Simple, sparse, but blessedly out of the storm. No electricity, Dane said, already moving to the fireplace where wood had been stacked. But we can have heat. Fire will mask our scent, and the rogues won't attack a fortified position unless they're desperate. How long do we have? Iris asked through chattering teeth. Until dawn. Maybe less. He had a fire started within minutes, flames catching and spreading with a hunger that matched her need for warmth. Come here. You need to warm up before hypothermia sets in. Iris stumbled to the fireplace on numb feet and collapsed in front of it. The heat felt like knives, against her frozen skin, painful and wonderful all at once. She held her hands toward the flames, watching her fingers slowly turn from white to pink. Dane disappeared into the shadows, returned with a heavy wool blanket that smelled of cedar. He draped it around her shoulders, and his hands lingered there for just a moment, warm through the fabric. Better? He asked quietly. Getting there. She looked up at him, this man, this creature who'd saved her life multiple times in the span of hours. In the firelight, he looked almost human again. Almost. Your ribs. Let me see them. Already healed. Let me see anyway. Something flickered in his expression, surprise, maybe, or something deeper. He knelt beside her and lifted the edge of his undershirt. The gashes that had torn through muscle and skin were now pink scars, already fading. Iris reached out without thinking, her fingers hovering over the healing wounds. Does it hurt? Not anymore. His voice had gone rough. Your hands are still ice cold. She started to pull back, but he caught her wrist gently, pressing her palm flat against his ribs. His skin was furnace hot, and she felt his sharp intake of breath at the contact. Warm yourself, he said. I don't feel the cold like you do. It was intimate in a way that had nothing to do with romance, and everything to do with trust. Iris kept her hand there, feeling his heartbeat strong and steady beneath her frozen fingers, feeling the heat of him seep into her bones. Tell me about the pack, she said softly. Your pack. Dane was quiet for a long moment. I became alpha at 19, young, by most standards. My father died in a challenge, and I was the only heir strong enough to hold the territory. That's when your uncle died too? My grandfather? 2 years before. The pack was still fractured from that loss when my father fell. His jaw tightened. I spent the first 5 years just keeping us together, proving I was strong enough, ruthless enough. And were you? I did what I had to do. He met her eyes. I'm not proud of all of it. Iris studied his face, the hard lines, the shadows that had nothing to do with firelight. How old are you? 29. A ghost of a smile, though some days I feel ancient. Only 5 years older than her, but he carried himself like someone who'd lived lifetimes. Iris withdrew, her hand slowly, tucking it back under the blanket. Why didn't you tell me all this on the bus? She asked. Why sit next to me, give me your coat, pretend to be normal? Because I was trying to decide whether to take you back to pack territory or put you on a different bus heading somewhere. They'd never find you. His voice went quiet. I'm still deciding. What changed? You didn't run when you saw what I was. When you should have been screaming, fleeing, you just... He shook his head. You looked at me like you were trying to understand, not condemn. Maybe because I know what it's like, Iris said. To have something inside you that you don't understand, that scares you. The dreams had been getting worse for months. Waking up in strange places, the overwhelming urge to run, to hunt, to howl at a moon she couldn't see. She thought she was losing her mind. Now she knew. She was just becoming something else. The first shift, Dane said carefully. It'll happen whether you want it to or not. The question is whether it happens safely, with guidance, or whether the rogues force it in violence. What's it like? The shift? Like dying and being reborn at the same pain. Time. Every bone in your body breaks and reforms. Every nerve catches fire. It's agony. His hand clenched on his knee. But after, when you're whole in your other skin, when you can run faster than wind and see in perfect darkness, when you can hear a heartbeat from a mile away. He stopped, something almost like longing crossing his face. It's freedom. You miss it, being the wolf. Every second of every day. The admission seemed to cost him. But I can't afford to let go. Not when I have a pack depending on me to stay human enough to lead them. The fire crackled between them, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, the storm had quieted to a gentle whisper of snow against the windows. If I go with you, Iris said slowly, to your pack. What happens then? Dane's eyes found hers, glowing amber in the dimness. Then you learn what you are, learn to control it, and, when the rogues come because they will come, you'll be strong enough to face them. And if I don't want this, any of this, then I'll find a way to suppress the gene. There are rituals, old magic that can lock away the wolf forever. His voice dropped. But it would be a half-life, Iris. Always knowing what you could have been. She pulled the blanket tighter, staring into the flames. My mother chose the half-life. Your mother never fully awakened. You're already too far along. He shifted closer, and she felt the heat radiating from him. I can smell the wolf in your blood now. It's only a matter of time. A sound outside a branch breaking under snow, or something heavier. Dane's head snapped toward the door, every muscle going taut. They found us, he whispered. Dane moved with liquid silence, extinguishing the oil lamp with a single breath. Darkness crashed down, broken only by the dying fire's glow. Iris's heart hammered as she heard him cross to the window, peering through gaps in the weathered shutters. How many? She whispered. 4, maybe 5. His voice had changed, gone deeper, rougher. They're surrounding the cabin. Iris stood on shaking legs, letting the blanket fall. What do we do? You stay behind me. No matter what happens, you don't run outside. They want you alive, which means they'll try to separate us. He turned to face her, and even in the near darkness she could see his eyes glowing. Promise me you won't run. I promise. A howl split the night, so close the windows rattled. It was answered by another, then another, until the cabin was surrounded by a chorus of inhuman voices singing their hunger. They're calling to you, Dane said quietly. Trying to wake the wolf in your blood. Can you feel it? She could. Something in her chest pulled tight, responding to those wild voices with a yearning that terrified her. Her skin felt too tight. Her teeth ached. Heat flooded through her veins like molten silver. Dane, she gasped. Something's wrong. He was at her side in an instant, his hands framing her. Face. Look at me. Focus on my voice. The moon is full tonight, that's why they chose now. It calls to dormant bloodlines, tries to force the change. I can't, it hurts. I know it does. His thumb stroked her cheekbones, an anchor in the chaos consuming her. But you're stronger than this. Breathe with me. In, out. She tried to match his breathing, but her lungs felt wrong, her ribs expanding in ways they shouldn't. Through the haze of pain, she was acutely aware of everywhere Dane touched her, his hands on her face, the heat of him, the way his scent wrapped around her, like a living thing. The pull toward him was almost as strong as the pull toward the wolves outside. That's it, he murmured. Stay with me. Stay human. A crash shook the cabin. Something heavy hit the door, splintering wood. Dane's head whipped toward the sound, a snarl building in his chest, that Iris felt more than heard. They're testing our defenses, he said. Won't be long now. He released her face, and Iris immediately felt the loss of his touch. The pain surged back, stronger. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to hold her body together as it tried to tear itself apart. Dane moved to the fireplace, grabbed a thick branch from the woodpile. Not much of a weapon against creatures that could tear through steel, but his grip on it said he'd make it count. There's something you should know, he said, not looking at her. About fated mates. Now? Iris gritted, through clenched teeth. You want to talk about this now? If we don't survive the next hour, I need you to understand. He glanced back, amber eyes blazing. The reason my scent confuses the rogues. The reason you're responding to the moon call but haven't shifted yet. The reason I can't seem to let you out of my sight. Iris's breath caught. What are you saying? The bond recognizes what we haven't admitted. What I've been trying to deny since I sat down next to you on that bus and your scent hit me like a physical blow. His voice went rough. You're mine, Iris. My fated mate. And I'm yours. The words settled into her bones like they'd always belonged there. Like some part of her had known from the moment he'd caught her during the bus's skid. From the moment she'd buried her face in his shoulder and felt inexplicably safe. That's impossible, she whispered. We just met. Fate doesn't care about timelines. A sad smile crossed his face. Your grandfather was my uncle. Your grandmother was his fated mate. The bloodline runs true. I should have known the moment I caught your scent. Should have realized why I couldn't leave you on that bus. Another crash. The door gave way with a shriek of wood and twisted metal. A massive black wolf filled the doorway, lips pulled back from fangs that gleamed in the firelight. Dane shifted his stance, putting himself between the rogue and Iris. Last chance to leave peacefully, he said, his voice carrying an alpha's command. She's under my protection. The wolf's response was a snarl that sounded almost like laughter. Then it lunged. Dane met the attack with the branch, driving it into the creature's open jaws. The wood splintered. They went down in a tangle of limbs and fur, rolling across the cabin floor. Iris pressed herself against the far wall as two more wolves poured through the broken door. She was trapped. Dane was occupied with the first attacker, barely holding his human form as he fought. The two new rogues stalked toward her, one from each side, cutting off any escape. Heat exploded through her body. The moon called to her through the broken door, full and silver and demanding. Her bones began to crack. No, she thought desperately. Not like this. Not forced. But her body didn't care about her wishes. Her spine curved, vertebrae popping like firecrackers. Her hands spasmed, fingers elongating, nails hardening into claws. A scream tore from her throat, except it came out as a howl. Iris! Dane's voice, ragged with panic. Fight it. Don't let them. One of the rogues leaped for her, and something inside Iris snapped. The world tilted sideways, pain beyond. Description consumed her as her body tore itself apart and rebuilt in a new image. Fur erupted across her skin. Her face elongated into a muzzle. Her senses exploded into impossible clarity. She could smell everything, hear everything, feel the heartbeat of every creature in the cabin. The rogue hit her mid-shift, and instinct took over. She twisted, caught its throat in jaws she didn't know how to use but somehow understood perfectly. Tasted blood, felt bone crunch. The wolf yelped and scrambled back, bleeding. Iris stood on 4 legs, her mind reeling, her body foreign and familiar all at once. She was smaller than the rogues but faster, her silver-white fur catching the moonlight like frost. The second rogue crouched, preparing to spring. Then Dane was there, not human anymore, but not fully wolf either. Something in between, something terrifying and beautiful, larger than any. Of the rogues, his fur dark as midnight, eyes blazing with alpha power. He placed himself beside her, shoulder to shoulder, and his growl shook the cabin walls. Mine, his body language said. My mate, my pack. The rogues hesitated. It was all the opening they needed. Dane struck like lightning, and Iris found herself moving with him, their bodies in perfect sync as if they'd fought together 1,000 times before, as if they were always meant to. The fight lasted minutes but felt like hours. Iris moved on pure instinct, her wolf knowing things her human mind couldn't comprehend. Where to bite, when to dodge, how to use her smaller size as an advantage, slipping under the rogue's attacks and striking at vulnerable throats and legs. But it was Dane who dominated the battle. In his half-shifted form, he was devastating. Larger, stronger, faster than the rogues who'd abandoned their humanity completely. He fought with precision and rage, protecting Iris even as she held her own, always positioning himself between her and the greatest threat. The connection between them was electric. She felt his intentions before he moved, adjusted her attacks to complement his. When he drove 2 rogues toward the fireplace, she was already there, cutting off their escape. When she stumbled over broken furniture, he was behind her, steadying her with his massive form. Together, something whispered in her blood. We're stronger together. The largest rogue, the one who'd attacked, first made a desperate lunge for Iris's throat. Dane caught it midair, jaws closing around its spine. The crack was sickening. The wolf went limp. The remaining 3 rogues exchanged glances. One whined, low and submissive. They'd lost and they knew it. Dane released the dead wolf, drew himself to his full height, and let out a roar that was half human, half beast, and entirely alpha. The sound vibrated through Iris's bones, made every instinct in her new body scream to submit, to bow, to acknowledge his dominance. The rogues fled through the broken door, disappearing into the forest with their tails between their legs. Silence fell, broken only by Iris's harsh panting and the crackle of the dying fire. Dane turned to her, and the intensity in his eyes made her wolf want to whimper. Not from fear, from something else entirely. Recognition. Need. The bond pulling taut between them, like a silver thread. He shifted back to human slowly, his body reforming with cracks and pops that made Iris wince in sympathy. Within moments, he stood before her, naked and bloodied, and entirely unbothered by either state. Are you hurt? His voice was hoarse. Iris tried to answer, but only managed a confused whine. She was still wolf, still trapped in this foreign body, and had no idea how to change back. Panic seized her. She turned in a circle, claws clicking on the wood floor, searching for something, anything familiar. Her heart raced. The cabin suddenly felt too small. The walls, closing in. She needed to run, to escape this skin that wasn't hers. Iris. Dane dropped to his knees in front of her, heedless of the broken glass and splinters. Look at me. Focus. She met his eyes, and the panic receded slightly, grounded by his steady gaze. Your first shift is always the hardest. Your body doesn't know how to change back yet. He held out his hand, palm up. I can help, but you have to trust me. Do you trust me? She took a tentative step forward, pressed her muzzle against his palm. Yes, against all logic, against everything that should matter. She trusted him, completely. Good. His other hand came up, buried itself in the fur at her neck. Close your eyes. Feel your human shape in your mind. Remember what it's like to stand on 2 legs, to have hands instead of paws. Remember your heartbeat when you were human. Iris closed her eyes, tried to focus, but all she could feel was Dane's hand in her fur, the warmth of his skin, the steady rhythm of his breathing. His scent surrounded her cedar and smoke, and something uniquely him that made her wolf settle, made the chaos in her mind quiet. That's it, he murmured. Find yourself. Come back to me. The shift began like a reversal of film, bones sliding back into place, fur receding into skin. It hurt, God. It hurt, but less than the first time. Or maybe she was just too exhausted to register the full extent of the pain. When it was over, she collapsed forward into Dane's arms, shaking. and naked and completely undone. He caught her, pulled her against his chest, one hand cradling her head. "I've got you. You're safe." Iris buried her face against his shoulder and let herself break. Great, shuddering sobs tore through her as the adrenaline finally crashed, as the reality of everything that had happened in the last 12 hours slammed into her all at once. She'd killed something, had tasted blood, had felt bones break between her jaws. "I know," Dane whispered against her hair. "I know it's overwhelming, but you survived. You were magnificent." "I don't feel magnificent," she choked out. "I feel like a monster." "You're not a monster. You're a shifter. There's a difference." He pulled back enough to look at her, one hand cupping her face. "What you did tonight protecting yourself, fighting beside me that took incredible strength. Most people don't survive their first shift, let alone fight through it. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice." His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, wiping away tears. "You could have frozen, could have let the fear consume you. Instead, you fought, you adapted, you trusted your instincts." "I trusted you," she corrected quietly. Something shifted in his expression, softened. The bond helped, made it easier for your wolf to accept what was happening. The bond. Fated mates. The words still felt surreal, but Iris couldn't deny what she'd felt during the fight. The connection between them had been undeniable, more than physical, more than attraction. Like their souls had recognized each other and refused to be separated. "What happens now?" she asked. Dane's jaw tightened. "Now we get you somewhere safe before the rogues regroup and come back with reinforcements. They'll tell others about you. A newly awakened Calloway bloodline, unmated and vulnerable. Every pack within 500 miles will want to claim you." "Claim me?" The word made her stomach turn. "Like property? Like a prize? Like power?" He stood, pulling her up with him, and grabbed the blanket from where it had fallen, wrapped it around her shoulders with gentle efficiency. "Your bloodline is legendary, Iris. Having you in a pack would legitimize any alpha's claim to territory. To dominance. But you don't want that." She said it as a statement, not a question. "I want." He stopped, seemed to struggle with the words. "I want you to be safe. To have the choice I never did. To decide for yourself what kind of life you want to live. And if I choose you?" The question escaped before she could stop it. "If I choose the bond?" Dane's eyes flared amber. His hands tightened on her shoulders, then deliberately loosened. "Then you'd be binding yourself to an alpha who has more enemies than allies, who leads a pack hanging on by a thread, who can't promise you safety or peace or anything resembling a normal life." "I stopped wanting normal the moment I got on that bus." "Iris." A howl echoed through the forest, distant, but growing closer. More joined it. A dozen voices, maybe more. Dane cursed. They brought the whole splinter pack. He grabbed his torn clothes from the floor, started dressing with quick efficiency. "We need to move. Now." They ran through the forest as dawn broke, turning the snow-laden trees into a cathedral of silver and gold. Iris's new senses overwhelmed her, every scent distinct and vivid, every sound sharp as breaking glass. She could hear Dane's heartbeat matching pace with hers, could smell the rogues tracking them a mile behind, could taste the approaching sunrise on the wind. "How much farther to your territory?" she gasped, her human lungs struggling where her wolf had run effortlessly. 2 miles, maybe less. Dane grabbed her hand, pulling her over a fallen log. "Once we cross the boundary, pack law applies. The rogues can't follow without declaring war. And if they declare war," his expression went grim, "then we'll have bigger problems than I anticipated." They crested a ridge, and Iris saw it a valley sprawled below them, dotted with cabins and larger structures that formed a small village, hidden deep in the wilderness. Smoke rose from chimneys. Even from this distance, she could see figures moving between buildings. "That's home," Dane said quietly. "Pack territory. 300 shifters, living as we have for 6 generations." It looked peaceful, normal, nothing like the violence and chaos that had defined Iris's last 12 hours. "They don't know I'm coming," she said. "No." Dane's hand tightened on hers. "And when they find out what you are, there will be complications." Before Iris could ask what kind of complications, a figure emerged from the tree line ahead. A woman, tall and lean, with copper hair braided down her back and eyes that shifted from green to gold as she assessed them. "You're late," she said, her voice carrying an edge. "And you brought company." Her gaze fixed on Iris, nostrils flaring. "Unmated female. Fresh shift. Calloway bloodline. Each word came out sharper than the last. Dane. What have you done? What I had to, Mara. He stepped forward, placing himself partially in front of Iris. The rogues forced her shift. She had no choice. There's always a choice. Mara's eyes narrowed. You could have let them have her. 1. Dormant bloodline isn't worth exposing the pack to a splinter war. Iris felt the words like a slap. Excuse me? You're a liability, Mara said bluntly. A beautiful, powerful liability that every unmated alpha within 500 miles will kill for. By bringing you here, Dane has put a target on this entire pack. She's under my protection, Dane said, his voice dropping into that alpha register that made Iris's spine straighten instinctively. Anyone who wants her goes through me. Mara's expression flickered surprise, then something like concern. You can't be serious. You barely know her. I know enough. The two shifters stared at each other, some silent communication passing between them. Finally, Mara shook her head. The elders are going to lose their minds, she muttered. And Kellen, I'll handle Kellen. Dane's jaw was granite. Right now we need to get Iris inside the territory before the rogues catch up. How many are tracking us? 15. Last count, led by Marcus. Mara's expression darkened. He's claiming you stole his mate-to-be. Says he had claim on the Calloway bloodline first. Ice slid down Iris's spine. I've never even met this Marcus. Doesn't matter to rogues. They play by different rules. Mara finally shifted her attention fully to Iris, and her expression softened slightly. You look like her, you know. Your grandmother. Same eyes. Same bone structure. She was the most beautiful shifter I'd ever seen. You knew her? I was young, but yes. Before she died, she was legendary. Kind. Fierce. Your grandfather worshipped her. Mara's voice went quiet. When she died, something in him broke. He challenged an alpha twice his size in a grief-mad rage. We lost them both in the same year. The weight of legacy pressed down on Iris's shoulders. I'm not her. No, Mara agreed. But you carry her blood. Her gift. And whether you want it or not, that makes you valuable. Dangerous. She glanced at Dane. We need to move. The boundary patrol is waiting. They descended into the valley, and Iris felt it the moment they descended, crossed into pack territory, a subtle shift in the air, a feeling of being watched by 1,000 invisible eyes. Power hummed beneath her feet, old magic woven into the land itself. Shifters emerged from the buildings as they passed. Iris felt their stares like physical touches, heard their whispered conversations even from a distance. Her new hearing picked up every word. Calloway bloodline. Thought they were all gone. Alpha brought her here himself. Does this mean? Dane's hand found the small of her back, a steadying presence. Ignore them. They're curious, not hostile. They're afraid, Iris corrected quietly. Afraid of what I represent. Change, Mara said from Dane's other side. Shifters hate change. We're creatures of tradition, of hierarchy. You disrupt all of that. They approached the largest building, a lodge constructed from massive logs, 3 stories tall with windows that glowed warmly in the morning light. Guards flanked the entrance, both in human form but radiating a barely leashed violence that made Iris's new instincts scream. One of them, a man built like a mountain with scars crossing his face, stepped forward. Alpha, the elders are assembled. They demand to speak with you immediately. I expected as much. Dane turned to Iris. Stay with Mara. Don't go anywhere alone until I've had a chance to explain the situation to the council. I'm not a child, Iris said, stung. If they want to discuss me, I should be there. You're not a child, but you're also not Pack. Not yet. His expression softened. Please, Iris, trust me on this. The elders are traditional. Let me handle them first. Before she could argue, the lodge doors burst open. A man strode out, younger than Dane, maybe 25, with golden hair and eyes like ice. He moved with a predator's grace, and every shifter nearby immediately lowered their gaze in submission. Everyone except Dane, who held his ground. Well, the golden-haired man said, his voice dripping with false warmth. Look what the Alpha dragged in. A little lost lamb. His gaze raked over Iris with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Or should I say, a little lost wolf. Kellen, Dane said, his tone a warning. Back down. Back down? Kellen laughed, the sound sharp. You bring a Calloway bloodline into our territory without consulting the round council, without considering the consequences, and you expect me to back down? He stepped closer to Iris, and she fought the urge to retreat. Tell me, little wolf, did the Alpha explain what happens to unmated females in pack territory? Enough, Dane snarled, moving between them. Kellen's smile widened. Or did he fail to mention that by pack law, any unmated Alpha can issue a claiming challenge? That you're free territory until you choose or are chosen? Iris's blood ran cold. What? Oh, he didn't tell you. Kellen's eyes glittered with malicious satisfaction. How interesting. The lodge's great hall fell silent as Kellen's words echoed off the timber beams. Every shifter present had gone still, watching the confrontation with predatory focus. Iris felt her new instincts screaming. Contradictory messages: submit to the dominant males, run from the threat, stand her ground. She did the latter, lifting her chin despite the fear coursing through her veins. Pack law, she said carefully, doesn't apply to me. I'm not pack. Ah, but you are on pack territory. Kellen circled her slowly, and Dane tracked his movement like a wolf watching a rival near his kill. The moment you crossed the boundary under Alpha Dane's protection, you fell under our jurisdiction, our laws, our customs. Customs that are outdated and barbaric, Mara interjected sharply. The claiming challenges haven't been invoked in 20 years. Then perhaps it's time we honored the old ways. Kellen stopped directly in front of Iris, close enough that she could smell the aggression rolling off him in waves. A Calloway bloodline is too valuable to leave unclaimed, too powerful to waste on sentiment. His eyes cut to Dane on the last word, and Iris understood. This wasn't really about her. This was about power, about two Alphas, and whatever history lay between them. I'm not a prize to be won, Iris said, her voice steadier than she felt. And I don't answer to laws I never agreed to follow. Kellen's laugh was sharp as broken glass. Spirit, I like that. Your grandmother had spirit too, before your grandfather tamed her. No one tamed her, Mara snapped. She chose him, chose the bond. That's how fated mates work, Kellen. Or have you forgotten in your ambition? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Kellen's expression went cold, calculated. His gaze moved between Iris and Dane with new understanding. Fated mates, he repeated slowly. Is that your claim, brother? Brother. The word hit Iris like a physical blow. She looked between the two men, saw the similarity in their builds, the shared sharpness of their features. How had she missed? It? Dane's silence was answer enough. You can't be serious. Kellen's voice had gone dangerously soft. You've known her for what, 12 hours? And you expect the pack to accept a fated mate claim based on proximity and desperation? I expect the pack to honor the bond when it presents itself, Dane said evenly, as they always have. The bond requires mutual acknowledgement, public declaration. Kellen turned to Iris, his smile predatory. Tell me, little wolf, has my brother claimed you properly? Have you accepted the bond before witnesses? Completed the mating ritual? Heat flooded Iris's face. That's none of your... I thought not. Kellen's satisfaction was palpable. Which means under pack law, she's still unclaimed. Still fair territory for any Alpha strong enough to win her. I'm standing right here, Iris said, anger overriding fear. Stop talking about me like I'm not. I don't care what your pack laws say. I'm not something to be claimed or won. I make my own choices. Do you? Kellen's eyes glittered. Then choose. Right now, declare your acceptance of the fated mate bond with Dane, or acknowledge that you're unmated and subject to challenge. It was a trap. Iris could see it clearly, could feel the weight of every gaze in the hall pressing down on her. If she claimed Dane now, under duress, it would seem desperate, forced. But if she didn't, she needs time, Dane said, his voice carrying that Alpha command. She's been through a forced first, shift, an attack, a flight through hostile territory. You can't expect her to make a life-altering decision in a moment of pressure. Can't I? Kellen's smile widened. You brought her here, brother. You exposed her to pack law. You knew what would happen the moment she crossed our boundary, without a formal claim in place. The doors to the great hall opened, and 3 elderly shifters entered. 2 men, 1 woman, all carrying themselves with the kind of authority that came from decades of leadership. The elders Dane had mentioned. The eldest, a woman with white hair and eyes that shifted between gold and silver, surveyed the scene with obvious displeasure. Enough, she said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. This is not how we welcome newcomers to our territory. Kellen, stand down. Dane, explain yourself. The rest of you, leave, now. The crowd dispersed with remarkable speed, leaving only the elders, Dane, Kellen, Mara, and Iris in the vast hall. The elder woman approached Iris, studying her with an intensity that made Iris want to squirm. Charlotte Calloway's granddaughter. I see the resemblance. What's your name, child? Iris. Iris Calloway. And do you understand what you are, Iris Calloway? What your bloodline represents? I'm beginning to, Iris said carefully. Though I'd appreciate if someone would explain it without threats or ultimatums. A ghost of a smile crossed the elder's face. Spirit indeed, your grandmother, would have liked you. She turned to Dane. A fated mate claim. Is this true? Yes, Elder Corinne. And you, girl? Do you feel this bond? Iris hesitated. Every instinct told her to be honest. But honesty meant vulnerability. Meant admitting something she barely understood herself. I feel something, she said finally. Something that pulled me to him from the moment we met. Something that made me trust him when I should have run. Something that felt right when we fought together. When we shifted. She swallowed hard. But I don't know if that's fate, or fear, or just desperation. Elder Corinne nodded slowly. Honest. Good. Too many young shifters confuse lust for destiny. Her gaze moved to Kellen. And you wish to challenge this claim? I wish to ensure the Calloway bloodline ends up where it can do the most good for the pack, Kellen said smoothly. If Dane and Iris truly are fated mates, they should have no fear of proving it through traditional means. Traditional means, Mara said darkly, that involve violence and domination. Traditional means, Kellen corrected, that allow the girl to see her options. To understand that she has choices beyond my options. Brother's convenient rescue. There's nothing convenient about fighting off 15 rogues, Dane growled. Enough. Elder Corinne raised her hand. The claiming challenge is pack law, ancient law. If Kellen wishes to invoke it, he has that right. She looked at Iris with something like sympathy. Unless the bond is already completed through mating, any unmated alpha may challenge for the right to court an unmated female. Court, Iris repeated flatly. Is that what we're calling it? The challenge is not for ownership, one of the other elders clarified, a thin man with kind eyes. It's for the right to be considered, to prove worthiness. The choice ultimately remains with the female. Some choice, Iris muttered. Decide between two men who are literally fighting over me, or reject them both, and what get challenged by every other alpha in the territory. You could leave, Elder Corinne said quietly. Return to the human world. Suppress your wolf with the old rituals. No one would stop you. Dane made a sound low in his throat. His eyes met Iris's, and she saw the struggle there, the desire to keep her, the willingness to let her go. And if I stay? Iris asked. Then you accept the challenge, Kellen said, satisfaction oozing from every word. 3 trials. The winner earns the right to complete the mate bond. And if neither of you wins? Iris asked. Kellen's smile was cold. Then you're free to choose, or to face the next challenger. The trials would begin at moonrise. Iris spent the day in a small cabin at the edge of the village. Mara, her unwilling but dutiful guardian. Through the window, she watched pack members prepare the ceremonial grounds, a clearing ringed by ancient stones, marked with symbols she didn't recognize but somehow understood. Old magic. Older than the pack itself. You don't have to do this, Mara said for the 3rd time, setting down a tray of food Iris hadn't touched. You could leave. I'd help you. And go where? Iris turned from the window. The rogues are still out there. Marcus still thinks he has some claim on me. And even if I ran, even if I suppressed the wolf, I'd spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Better than being trapped in a bond you don't want. Who says I don't want it? The words escaped before Iris could stop them. Mara's expression softened. You feel the pull to Dane. I can see it. But feeling and choosing are different things. The bond doesn't give you the luxury of time, it demands everything. Immediately. Forever. Did you ever feel it? The bond? Once. Mara's voice went distant. With someone who chose power over fate. Who saw the bond as a fate. Weakness to exploit, rather than a gift to cherish. She met Iris's eyes. That's why I'm warning you. The bond can be beautiful, but it can also destroy you if the other person isn't worthy of it. And Dane is complicated. He's been alpha since he was 19, carrying the weight of 300 souls who depend on him to be strong, infallible, ruthless when necessary. He doesn't let people in, doesn't let himself want anything beyond the pack's survival. Mara paused. Until you. A knock at the door interrupted them. Dane entered without waiting for permission, and Iris's heart kicked against her ribs at the sight of him. He'd changed into ceremonial clothing, dark leather pants, and a sleeveless tunic marked with silver wolf head symbols. His hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp angles of his face. "I need to speak with Iris," he said to Mara. "Alone." Mara hesitated, then nodded. "I'll be right outside." The door closed, leaving them in charged silence. Dane crossed to the window, keeping careful distance between them, and Iris wondered if he was fighting the same magnetic pull she felt. "You're angry with me," he said quietly, "for not telling you. About pack law. About the claiming challenges. I'm angry at the situation. At being treated like a prize. At having my choices stripped away." Iris wrapped her arms around herself. "But I understand why you didn't tell me. You were trying to protect me from exactly this. I failed." The words came out harsh, self-condemning. "I should have taken you somewhere else. Anywhere else. Instead, I brought you directly into Kellen's reach. He's your brother. Half-brother. Same father, different mothers." Dane's jaw tightened. "He believes he should have been Alpha. That because he's 2 years younger. Because he was born to the Alpha's second mate after my mother died. That makes him somehow more deserving. Does he have support? In the pack? Enough to be dangerous. Not enough to challenge me directly yet." Dane finally turned to face her. "But you've changed the equation. A Calloway bloodline gives whoever claims you legitimacy. Ancient blood right. The kind of power that could shift the balance. So this isn't really about me at all," Iris said bitterly. "It's about politics. About 2 brothers fighting for dominance. It's about both." Dane closed the distance. Between them in 2 strides, his hands framing her face with a gentleness that stole her breath. "Yes, Kellen sees you as a tool, as power to be wielded. But I see you, Iris, the woman who didn't run when she saw what I was, who fought beside me like we'd trained together for years, who looks at me like I'm more than just an alpha." "What are you then?" she whispered. "Yours, if you'll have me." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "The bond isn't just attraction or convenience. It's recognition. My soul knowing yours. And I've felt it from the moment I sat down next to you on that bus. A certainty that everything in my life led to that moment. To you." Iris's eyes burned. "How can you be so sure? We barely know each other. I know you're brave. I know you're strong. I know you bite your lip when you're nervous and you smell like rain and vanilla. And something uniquely you that drives my wolf insane." His voice dropped. "I know that when you shifted for the first time, when you should have been lost to the chaos, you found me in the darkness and trusted me to bring you back. Dane, you don't have to accept the bond tonight. You don't have to choose me." His hands trembled slightly against her skin. "But know that I will fight for you. In these trials and in every challenge that comes after. Not because you're a Calloway. Not because of politics or power. But because you're mine and I'm yours. And that's the only truth that matters." Iris reached up, covered, his hands with hers. "What are the trials?" 3 tests. First is strength the hunt, whoever brings down the largest prey. Second is endurance, a race through territory that will push both of us to our limits. Third is combat. His expression darkened. Shifted combat. First blood or submission. You could hurt each other. Seriously. That's the point. To prove who's willing to sacrifice more. Risk more. He leaned his forehead against hers. "I need you to understand something. If I lose, you won't. If I lose," he continued firmly, "the choice is still yours. Kellen, winning the trials only earns him the right to court you. You can still refuse him, still reject the bond entirely. And if you win, then I'm asking you, begging you to give us a chance. To see where this bond leads. No pressure, no demands, just possibility." Before Iris could respond, a howl rose. From the ceremonial grounds. Then another. The pack calling them to witness. Dane pulled back, his eyes glowing amber in the fading light. "It's time." Iris let him lead her outside, into the gathering dusk. The entire pack had assembled around the stone circle. Hundreds of faces turned toward them, with expressions ranging from curiosity to hostility to hunger. Kellen stood at the circle's center, already shirtless, his skin marked with ceremonial paint. He smiled when he saw them, sharp and cruel. "Finally," he called out. "I was beginning to think you'd run, brother. Taken your little prize, and fled." "She's not a prize," Dane said, his voice carrying alpha command that made the crowd shift restlessly. "And I don't run." Elder Corinne stepped forward, raising her hands. "Let the trials begin. First test the hunt. You have until moonset to bring your kill to the altar. The alpha who..." Provides the greater offering proves his ability to provide, to protect, to lead. She brought her hands together with a crack like thunder. Shift and run. May the strongest wolf win. Dane's eyes found Iris's one last time. Then he shifted, bones breaking and reforming in a symphony of controlled violence. And the great black wolf threw back its head and howled. Kellen shifted a heartbeat later, his golden fur gleaming. And the hunt began. They returned at moonset, both wolves carrying their kills. Kellen arrived first, dragging a massive elk 8 points, easily 300 pounds. The pack murmured appreciation as he shifted back to human form, blood streaking his chest, triumph gleaming in his eyes. "Let's see the great alpha top that," he said, breathing hard. Dane emerged from the forest moments later, and the crowd went silent. He'd brought down a black bear. Not just any, bear a monster, easily 500 pounds, with claws as long as daggers. The kill was fresh, the bear's throat torn out with surgical precision. Elder Corinne examined both offerings, her expression unreadable. The first trial goes to Alpha Dane. Superior prey, clean kill, brought down alone. She raised her hand. Second trial, the endurance race, from here to Eagle's Peak and back. First to return claims victory. Iris watched both men prepare, saw the exhaustion neither would admit to, the blood loss they were ignoring. Dane's shoulder bore fresh claw marks from the bear. Kellen limped slightly on his left leg. "This is madness," she whispered to Mara. "They're already hurt. The race could kill them?" "Yes." Mara's voice was flat. "That's why it's called a trial. Only the worthy survive." The signal came. Both wolves launched into the darkness, and Iris felt her heart launch with them. The wait was agony. Minutes stretched into hours. The moon arced across the sky. Pack members whispered, placed bets, watched the forest with predatory patience. Iris couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every instinct screamed at her to shift, to run after Dane, to make sure he was safe. The bond pulled taut between them, a silver thread connecting her to something moving fast and desperate through the wilderness. "You feel it," Elder Corinne said quietly, appearing at Iris's side. "The bond pulling you toward him. It hurts," Iris admitted. "Like part of me is out there, struggling. That's how you know it's real. The bond doesn't just connect souls, it intertwines them. His pain becomes yours. His triumph, your joy." The elder's gaze was knowing. "You've already made your choice, child. Your heart decided the moment you didn't run from him in that rest stop. Then why put us through this? Because the pack needs to see it. Needs to witness the bond proven through trial. And because sometimes," Corinne's voice softened, "we need to fight for something to understand its worth." A howl split the night, anguished, furious. From the direction of Eagle's Peak, Iris was moving before she thought about it, stripping off the ceremonial robe Mara had given her, letting the shift take her. It hurt less this time, her body remembering the shape, welcoming it. "Iris, wait." Mara's voice, distant and irrelevant. The white wolf ran, following the bond, like a beacon, through forest and over streams, up rocky slopes that tore at her paws. The world exploded into scent and sound. She could smell Dane's blood, fresh and terrifying, could hear fighting, snarls, the crack of bone against stone. She burst into a clearing near the peak and saw them, Dane and Kellen, both in wolf form, locked in vicious combat. This wasn't the race anymore. This was the third trial, started early, started wrong, started with intent to kill. Kellen had Dane pinned against a boulder, jaws closing toward his throat. Dane's back leg hung at a wrong angle, broken. Blood matted his dark fur. Iris didn't think. Just launched herself at Kellen, all teeth and fury and protective rage. She hit him broadside, knocking him away from Dane. Kellen rolled, came up snarling, and Iris saw madness in his eyes. This wasn't about trials anymore. This was about eliminating a rival permanently. "Mine," her wolf snarled. "My mate, my alpha." Kellen lunged for her instead, and Iris met him tooth and claw. She was smaller, less experienced, but she was faster, and she was fighting for something beyond power or territory. She was fighting for choice, for the right to claim her own destiny. They tumbled down the slope in a tangle of fur and violence. Iris felt ribs crack, tasted her own blood. But she didn't stop. Couldn't stop, not while Dane was hurt, vulnerable, hers to protect. A roar shook the mountain. Dane shifted to that terrifying half-form, dragging himself forward on 3 legs. The look in his eyes was pure alpha fury, not at Kellen, but at Iris, at her risking herself. Enough. The command echoed with power that made Iris's wolf want to submit instantly. She released Kellen, stumbled back, panting. Kellen shifted to human, blood streaming from a dozen wounds. She interfered. She's not part of the trial. That's grounds for what? Dane's voice was barely human. For invalidating a bond you never had claim to in the first place? He limped forward. And despite his injuries, despite the broken leg and torn flesh, he radiated dominance. She came because the bond called her, because her mate was in danger and every instinct demanded she protect what's hers. The trials aren't finished. The trials are over. Elder Corinne's voice cut through the tension. She'd followed, along with half the pack. All witnesses now. Kellen, you violated sacred law. The trials are contests of skill and strength, not assassination attempts. He was winning, Kellen spat. Of course I tried to murder your alpha, Mara finished, her voice cold, in front of the entire pack. There's a word for that, Kellen. It's called treason. The pack closed in, and Iris saw Kellen's confidence finally crack. He was surrounded by shifters who'd watched him try to kill their alpha, who'd seen him break the most fundamental pack law. I challenge, he started. You have no right to challenge anything, Elder Corinne said. You are hereby banished from pack territory. You have until sunrise to leave. If you're found within our boundaries after that, the sentence is death. Kellen's face contorted with rage. But he was outnumbered, outmatched. He shifted and ran, disappearing into the forest with his tail between his legs. Iris shifted back to human, trembling with exhaustion and pain. Dane did the same, and they knelt in the dirt together, both bleeding, both broken, both alive. You shouldn't have come, he said roughly, his hand finding her face. You could have been killed. So could you? Iris leaned into his ephod. Touch. The bond I felt you hurting. I couldn't just stand there. I know. His thumb traced her split lip gently. I would have done the same. Did the same. When the rogues came for you. So what happens now? Dane's eyes searched hers, amber and achingly vulnerable. Now I ask you properly, without trials or challenges or pack politics in the way. Iris Calloway, will you accept this bond? Will you be my mate, my partner, my equal in all things? Around them, the pack waited. The moon hung low on the horizon. Dawn approached with all its promise and uncertainty. Iris thought about her mother's warning, about running, about the safe, simple life she'd left behind on that bus. Then she thought about the way Dane's heartbeat matched hers, about fighting beside him, trusting him, choosing him even when fate seemed determined to tear them apart. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll be yours, if you'll be mine. His kiss tasted like blood and victory and forever, and the pack howled their approval to the dying moon.